Ready? Good evening and welcome to the Pascack Valley Regional High School District Board of Education meeting for this evening, April 29th, 2024. During this meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to make comments. In order for the citizens to make a comment, they must be physically present at this meeting. During the first opportunity, early on the agenda, comments regarding agenda items are invited. The second opportunity will occur just prior to adjournment, when residents may address general comments to the board. Roll call, please, Mr. Usami.
Mrs. Varghese,
Here.
Ms. Calderon,
Here.
Mrs. Huang,
Here.
Mr. Luisi,
Here.
Mrs. Martin,
Here.
Mr. Stankus,
Here.
Ms. Steffens,
Present.
Mr. Weaver.
Would you all please join me for the flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by mailing copies of said notice to the record, filing copies of said notice with the municipal clerks of Hillsdale, Montvale, Rivervale, and Woodcliff Lake, and publishing said notice in the record on July 21st, 2023. Right now, we would like to take a moment to observe a moment of silence in remembrance of Lamont Alston. He would have been a senior at the Pascack Valley High School class of 2024. Thank you. I would like to announce that Mr. Joseph Blundo, who was our vice president, as of yesterday, he resigned from the board due to work constraints. So we will be looking at who will be able to replace him from the town of Rivervale. So Mr. Usami is going to give us a few more details about that.
So unfortunately, Mr. Blundo has resigned his position on the board, and there's a vacancy, so we are going to need to appoint someone. There is a process to this. It'll be on our website for sure, all the details. There's fairly simple qualifications for board members, but you have to be a resident of Rivervale, that's for sure, okay? And then basically, it's people who are interested would be sending me a letter of interest and resume. You can either drop that off, mail it, or send it via email. So all that information is going to be in here on our website. And then what we are planning on doing is the applications will close by end of business day on Tuesday, May 14th. And then the interviews will be conducted on Monday, May 20th, prior to the regularly scheduled board meeting. So if you have any questions, you can always contact me as far as what's entailed. But that is the process we are planning at this point to follow.
Next, we have routine matters. We have monthly reports. And first, we're going to have the Finance Committee report by Mr. Usami.
Okay, Finance Committee meeting. Mr. Luisi is the chair. However, he was not present, so I'm going to be delivering the Finance Committee report. So it occurred on April 16th. It was myself, Ms. Bellotti, Joe Blundo, Ginny Varghese, and Kristen Martin in attendance. So there were 2 agenda items. One was dealing with the athletics and booster clubs, and then the other was the budget presentation for 2024-2025 budget. So this is what was provided by Mr. Joe Spafford. Pascack Valley Athletics has 8 total independent sports boosters: football, boys soccer, boys basketball, dance, ice hockey, wrestling, baseball, and boys lacrosse. Dues are collected for football, $300, and boys soccer, $210, and boys lacrosse, $150. Now, boys basketball, wrestling, and baseball monies are fundraised. The monies that typically goes for end-of-year dinners, senior gifts, awards, senior shirts, sweats, etc. Ice hockey was anywhere from $700 to $1,200. That's depending on the roster size and ice rental fees. And swimming is $350, depending on roster size and pool rental fees. Now, these programs are going to be supplemented or actually going to be fully funded as far as ice time and as well as pool time. You'll see that in the presentation. Dance was $1,850 this year. The money, according to Coach Noon, goes towards DTU dance camp, dance intensives, technique classes once a week from September to January, airfare, hotel, and meals at Nationals in Florida. It also goes towards choreography and end-of-year dinner and costuming. Again, we are going to be funding some of this, especially the uniform or / costumes for dance. Pascack Hills. Mr. Steve Papa provided this information for Pascack Hills, the boys and girls soccer, football, gymnastics, girls volleyball, boys and girls basketball, wrestling, baseball, softball, boys and girls lacrosse, golf, and track. That's cross-country, winter, and spring. Booster clubs all running through student government accounts. Football is the only one that requires dues, and $300 fee goes towards meals throughout the 4-day camp and pregame meals throughout the season. The others fundraise through various means, and it goes towards clothing, end-of-year dinners, senior gifts, equipment, and trips. Now I reviewed the 2024-2025 draft budget presentation with the committee. There were a couple of clarifications on verbiage. Otherwise, the presentation was provided to all board members in the briefing prior to spring break. I mentioned that the only difference between the tentative budget and the proposed adopted budget is the addition of a projected charter school student. There would be an increase in appropriations, which will be offset with an increase in revenues. There would be no effect to the 2.47% tax levy increase. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Usami. Next up, we have our student reports, and we're going to go first with Olivia G. from Pascack Hills High School.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Olivia G., and I'll be presenting the Pascack Hills student report for the months of March and April. For the first classroom item, Pascack Hills students in the Science Fiction Literature English course and photography class, along with the History Club, went to the Spyscape Museum on March 22nd, 2024. Their purpose was to gain insight into encryption and coding post-World War II. Upon arrival, the students received a briefing outlining their mission. They proceeded to explore various educational stations focusing on encryption, lie detection, and surveillance, all aimed at assessing their aptitude in the worlds of espionage. The museum showcased a range of artifacts from World War II, including examples of secret messaging during warfare, a James Bond car, a collapsible motorcycle, lie detection booths, and documentation detailing spying activities by various presidential administrations throughout the decades. For classroom item number 2, in a heartwarming display of community spirit, students under the guidance of Ms. Maison undertook a project that showcased their compassion and concern. Together, they devoted their time and energy to creating comfortable beds for dogs at the Bergen County Animal Shelter and Adoption Center in Teterboro. Each stitch and seam in their work reflected their genuine desire to make a positive difference. Their eagerness and dedication to improving the well-being of these furry friends serve as a source of inspiration. This experience not only cultivated empathy and a sense of responsibility within the students, but also strengthened their connection to the community and its cherished pets. Co-curricular item number 1. On March 15th, the Literary Art Magazine's members proudly accepted the Silver Crown Award from the Columbia Scholastic Press Association, CSPA, at Columbia University. This prestigious award is bestowed upon only a select few schools and represents the highest form of recognition from the CSPA, honoring overall excellence in collegiate and scholastic magazines, newspapers, and yearbooks across the nation. the Silver Crown Award has made history for Echoes, marking its first win in over 20 years. The spring 2023 edition of Echoes, titled Surreal, earned this esteemed recognition. The edition featured art and writing submissions exploring themes centered around breaking free from the ordinary and highlighting the transformative power of imagination. The Hills community extended heartfelt congratulations to the winners, as well as to the entire 2022 to 2023 Echoes editorial team and staff for their remarkable accomplishments. Co-curricular item number 2. The Pascack Hills History Club created a podcast called The Time Warp in the fall of 2022, and the first episode was published in the spring of 2023. The club releases podcasts on Spotify about intriguing historical phenomena. Each member contributes their knowledge and research on the chosen topic to the script. The podcast's primary goal is to engage students with captivating historical ideas and events. With episodes typically lasting around 10 minutes, it offers an easily digestible format for listeners. Co-curricular item number 3. From March 21st to 24th, the Pascack players delivered an exhilarating, humorous, and heartfelt performance in their spring musical. Whether one was a devotee of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, Hills Theater, or both, the show was a must-see event. In the spirit of the beloved Disney Cinderella movie, Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella captivated the audience with its blend of music, humor, and fresh interpretation of a timeless tale. The crew masterfully crafted an enchanting set, utilizing vibrant colors, lighting effects, and overall design to captivate spectators. Backed by live musical accompaniment, the production featured mesmerizing transformation sequences, captivating the audience. And for athletic item number 1, congratulations to the boys tennis team, who's 5-2 and undefeated in the Big North Patriot Division. Athletic item number 2, girls lacrosse finished off a successful trip to Universal in Florida, and they played some great games. Looking forward to the regular season. And for academic awards, on April 18th, 2024, 65 students were inducted into the Pascack Hills High School chapter of the National Honor Society. Congratulations. And for my joke of the day, why did the picture go to jail? Yes, because it was framed. Nice, thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Next, we have the Pascack Valley High School report by Madeline Gibbs.
Good evening. My name is Maddie Gibbs, and I will be giving the PV Student Monthly Report for April. For classroom items, item number 1, the students of French 3 honors and 4 honors at Valley created videos on Flipgrid to share with the students at our exchange school in France, Lycée Amiral de Grasse. Previously, the students in France had created videos to share with our students. Each school's videos, created in both French and English, included topics such as regional cuisine, important local sites, cultural stereotypes, and life in high school, such as the American tradition of prom. We look forward to continuing this connection with our partner school in France, which began in 2014. Item number 2. The PV Symphonic Band performed at the Regional Concert Band Festival on March 20th and received a coveted gold rating. Sophomore alto saxophonist Ming Yang Quinn received an Outstanding Soloist Award. PV Jazz Band performed at Jazz at Lincoln Center, essentially Ellington Jazz Festival, at Newark Academy on April 13th. Students also had the opportunity to hear bands from around the state and world, including a band from Australia, and participate in clinics given by some of the biggest names in jazz. Senior guitarist and vocalist Thomas Santos, senior trombonist Ming Lang Quinn, and junior pianist Jada Martinez received Outstanding Soloist Awards. This was an excellent tune-up for the PV Jazz Band's upcoming performance at the New Jersey State Division III Finals at Metuchen High School. For co-curricular items, item number 1, the PV Beekeeping Club had their spring hive inspection, reporting good observation for 4 active hives. They also sold jars of Savannah Bee Company honey to raise funds for supporting the hives financially. The club had a table set up on April 13th at the annual Hike to Hillsdale event, and they also hosted Hills junior Lila Kovalyov, while she used the bees to conduct an AP research project investigating her question that human-generated noise pollution could affect bee behavior. For athletic items, item number 1, congratulations to Coach Jeff Jasper on receiving the first ever New Jersey Basketball Coaches Association Lifetime Achievement Award. The award honors Coach Jasper as an exemplary New Jersey high school basketball coach who, as an educator, leader, and mentor, has made significant and sustained contributions to the development of young people who play Scholastic high school basketball in New Jersey. Congratulations to Coach Jasper on receiving this well-deserved recognition. Item number 2, PV's spring athletic teams are off to an incredible start of the season, with several of our teams being ranked in the top 10 for all of North Jersey. Good luck to all of our teams as they get ready for upcoming county and state tournaments, and be sure to head out to support our Valley Spring teams. For my fun fact, Pascack Valley Class Councils hosted its annual Class Cause Week. The Cause Week was a tremendous success, beginning with a PSA video highlighting the format of the week and each council's cause. The week focused on each council raising awareness and funds for their causes, as well as participating in a school-wide volleyball tournament, with all the proceeds going to each grade's cause. Thank you to the PV community for their continued support of the Class Council Cause Week. And now for my joke. Where do fruits go on vacation? Paris. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. One thing I would like to add to the routine matters is I would like to congratulate the Pascack Pioneers. They had gone to Houston for a robotics competition. I don't know how they did, but I do know that they went, which is a big accomplishment. That was in Houston. So I'd like to congratulate them on that too. That's pretty awesome. Do you know how they?
I'm not sure, but also DECA is currently in California at a final competition.
And DECA is in, you said California, Anaheim? Okay, great. So congratulations to them also, and good luck to them while they're there. Next, we have the minutes for April 8th, 2024, the regular meeting and executive meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Usami.
Ms. Calderon,
I'm going to abstain from that, from both of those.
Mrs. Huang,
Yes.
Mr. Luisi,
Abstain.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Stankus. Yes. Ms. Steffens,
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese.
Yes. Next up, we have some presentations. So the first presentation that we have is by Mr. Usami. It is the 2024 to 2025 budget presentation.
To advance it, just use the arrows? Okay. So this is the proposed budget for 2024, 2025. So this is the budget process. It's a very long and arduous process that we go through. I just wanted to let you know that it was very, very difficult this year. It's been getting more and more difficult each year to balance the budget. But we did it, and we like our budget this year, or the upcoming year. So the board and superintendent and the school business administrator begin dialogue on budget sometime in August and September. And then the budget managers submitted the budget requests on November 22nd. Superintendent and the SBA reviewed budget requests and created tentative budget. That was in December. Then the finance committee and board kept abreast of significant increases in health insurance, salary and benefits, and transportation that will challenge the budget. That was from January through March. And then the board approved the tentative budget on March 18th. And then the SBA submitted the tentative budget to the county office on March 19th. And the county office approved the tentative budget on March 26th. Now the board sets the final budget for the Board of Education vote tonight, April 29th. So these are the budget priorities that support the district vision. It's to create a culture of innovation, inquiry, and individuality that promotes achievement and choice by cultivating the skills needed to compete and collaborate as ethical and responsible global citizens. 2, to support the district mission statement. The mission of the Pascack Valley Regional High School District is to prepare our students for successful college and/or career experiences with the needed mindset, skills, structures, and knowledge to accomplish that goal. So student and staff recognition. Look at how our district vision and budget initiatives continue to promote positive results for our school community. So at Pascack Valley, there are 10 National Merit Commended students, 27 AP scholars, 20 AP scholars with honors, 31 AP scholars with distinction, 10 students National Hispanic Recognition, 3 National African American Program, 1 National First Generation Program, 1 National Indigenous Recognition Program. At Pascack Hills, 8 National Merit Commended students, 19 AP scholars, 5 AP scholars with honors, 2 AP scholars with distinction, 2 National African American Program, 2 National Hispanic Recognition Program, and 1 National First Generation Program. Technology and communication accomplishments. We replaced the core switches, that's the backbone of the network, which was 40% funded through E-rate. We also leveraged a state grant to purchase a new video surveillance back-end, saving nearly $100,000. We also replaced or consolidated several systems to increase productivity and to reduce costs. And we work with student interns, as you can see the 2 interns there, and the Pascack Hills Marketing Club to enhance how we highlight great work of our students and staff. So kudos to the interns, and I don't know if the Marketing Club had to do with the photos. So the photos that you see in this presentation were done by the interns, were taken by the interns, and they're the ones also who helped in the selection of the photos, of the many, many photos that we had. In athletics, so one of the things that we realized is we always miss the spring season and to recognize those spring accomplishments because we do the budget presentation around this time of year. So we're going to backtrack to 2023 spring and recognize them. It's an error that I kept saying, you know what, we never recognize the spring kids. And the teams, let's do that. So for Pascack Valley, 1 softball player named first team All-County, 1 baseball player named first team All-County. 2 baseball players surpassed 100 career hits, and girls lacrosse won the NJIGLL American North Division Championship. Athletics at Pascack Valley in the fall of 2023, the girls soccer Big North National Division champions, the boys soccer North 1 Group 2 state sectional finalists. Boys cross country, one runner won the Bergen County Championship. First team all Bergen County, 3 males and 4 females. Pascack Valley winter in 2024, hockey, the Big North Gold Cup finalists. In bowling, North 1 Group 2 state sectional finalists. The dance team, 2nd place in small pom and 3rd place in large varsity team performance at nationals. Winter Big North Coaches of the Year, girls, swimming, and wrestling. Girls basketball, 1 player scored her 1,000th career point. Pascack Valley winter continues. Indoor track, 2 athletes won both North 1 Group 2 state sectional championships and Bergen County championships. Girls swimming, Big North Liberty Division champions. Wrestling, Big North National Division champions. Wrestling, NJSIAA District 3. 2 wrestlers won District 3 championships. 9 wrestlers advanced to the Region 1 tournament. First team all Bergen County, 2 males, 2 females. Also in athletics this year, a new truss for the turf field scoreboard was purchased. A wall pad for the wrestling room was replaced, and a 21-foot 5-row bleacher with guardrail was purchased. Athletics at Pascack Hills. I just want to mention one thing, is like, we didn't capture everything, so if we missed something here, apologies. Pascack Hills Spring 2023, baseball, Group 2 state champions. Boys lacrosse, division champions, first time in school history. Pascack Hills Fall of 2023 and Winter of 2024. Football, second straight division champion. Girls tennis, division champions. Gymnastics, division champions. Girls swimming, division champions. Boys basketball, Bergen Invitational Tournament champions, and MVP of the tournament was Nick Luckman. In athletics, the softball field at Pascack Hills was regraded and realigned. Now we go to curricular proposals. So there's an enhanced schedule allowing students to enroll in an additional course if desired. Now it's in its 4th year. Expansion of the business program. Continued online and hybrid offerings like financial literacy. Updated technology and materials to keep the district on the cutting edge. Also, new courses in business. Implementation of new required state curriculum standards. Supplemental programs for ELL learners. Professional development for AP and other programs. And expanded use of AI training. Also, continued implementation of CPR certification and bleeding control training for all staff and students. Embedded real-world learning, college and career training in various curricular areas. And continued focus on social, emotional, health, wellness, and mental health practices for students and faculty. Also, continued work with required state plans. Continued partnerships with universities and dual enrollment programs. Also replacing laser engravers, kilns, digital cameras, and student-used resources. So student-used resources are basically consumables in all departments. Other extracurricular proposals here, ice time for ice hockey, pool time for swimming, as we had mentioned previously in the Finance Committee meeting report, gymnastics facility from half to full, dance team uniforms or outfits, swim team supplies, also a heritage club and intramural club, and also unified sports expansion. So right now we have bowling, and we're going to have a full-time coach for the unified bowling program. We're also looking at some donation through Special Olympics to help fund some of these. 2024, the staffing in 2024-2025, student-first scheduling remains in place. This budget plans to absorb 3 positions from the anticipated 11 vacancies through reorganization and a resectioning of courses. Final determination of positions will occur after schedules are finalized and may include reduction in spending due to a reduction of 6 periods or absorption through breakage. Positions include a consideration of 6 periods and full-time equivalents. Enrollment decrease of approximately 400 students since 2011 allows for this adjustment. We absorbed a drop of 191 students from 2020 through 2023, and we anticipate an additional 50 this year, actually next year for 24-25. What are we doing for capital projects? We have 6 projects. Most of these projects are on a smaller scale. In previous years, you may have seen some bigger dollar amounts, bigger projects. Nonetheless, these are very important projects. We had a lot of projects, capital projects that pushed back due to COVID, and right now we're starting them. We'll be starting them in the summertime. So these projects, they're slated for 24-25, however, they probably will not begin until June of 2025. At Pascack Valley, we're going to repave the parking lot. Also at Valley, we're going to resurface the tennis courts and upgrade the pneumatics to DDC system. That's an old system that for heating, so it's compressed gas and air as opposed to a digital system that we're going to go to. At Pascack Hills, air conditioning in the tech room, also field lighting replacement, and again, upgrading pneumatics to DDC system. So it's a total of $1,593,252 coming out of capital reserve in the budget. So total sources of revenue. So you can see that 85% is made up of local tax levy. That's also including debt service. So that's $57.7 million. Capital and maintenance emergency reserves, we're also going to take that. We're increasing. You can see it's 2.2 million, but only 3% of the budget. One thing to remember is this year we're going to be using emergency reserve of $250,000, and that is to help offset some of the health insurance increases. We also have a fund balance of $2.5 million. That takes up 4%. That is excess surplus to help the budget for 24-25. We also have tuition, $754,000. That makes up about 1%. That's tuition that we receive from other districts for out-of-district placements in our in-district programs. We also have miscellaneous items, which comes to about 1%. That's things like interest on investment and various other things, facility use that we get revenue for. And then federal and state aid is almost $4 million, and it's about 6%. But you can see in the big pie chart that 85% comes from taxes. A comparison of general fund revenues from 24-25 to the current year, 2023-2024. You can see that we increased the fund balance by almost about $450,000. Tuition and miscellaneous, you can see that has increased by about $100,000. The local tax levy, the increase, like I had mentioned, is 2.47%. It's a little over $1.3 million. Also, the capital maintenance and emergency reserve, that's at 2.2. And like I mentioned, we did some increases, $250,000 in emergency reserve, and we also boosted the maintenance reserve by $100,000 for maintenance projects. The prior year encumbrances, that's just from the current year, from 22-23, that came across in the audit, and that's how much we had, that we had allocated for 22-23, yet it's being spent in 23-24. State aid, extraordinary aid, and semi, you can see there's an increase there of almost $300,000. We got increase in state aid. We're also increasing our extraordinary aid and semi. That's a very small number. It actually dropped a little bit, about 17,000 and change to about 16,000 and change. That is the Special Education Medicare Initiative. So you can see what the general fund total is, $65.1 million, as opposed to the 23-24, which was $63.6 million. So the budget expenditures, we look at instruction, regular programs at $19.27 million. That's the largest, but also employee benefits. If you look at that, it's $9.6 million. Support services at $7.5 million. Support services is the child study team, guidance, health, media center. Those are the kind of support services. Operations and maintenance, that's our facilities, to keep our facilities safe and clean, at $6.3 million. Tuition, like I mentioned, we also send out students. Not only do we take students in for our in-district programs, we send students out of district placements for special education, as well as for the Bergen Academies and the technical schools. So just so you're aware, this will be in the minutes, so you'll be able to get this. So there's also instruction in special education at $4.3 million. Again, we talked about our in-district programs that we have. So that's at $4.3 million. Administrative support is almost $3.9 million. That deals with the superintendent's office, my office, the principal's office, as well as technology, information technology. Transportation at almost $3.8 million. That's student transportation that we provide. Athletics at $1.9 million. Co-curricular at $671,000. And capital outlay, that's what we just talked about before, about the capital projects. That number's a little more, but because there's also debt service that the state actually, what I refer to as a tax. So we had the referendum many, many years ago. So you're supposed to get 40%, but we don't. Usually it's 34%. We also have to budget a number in there over $100,000 over the last, I can't remember how long. I think ever since I started in 2010, it's been taken out. So basically you get that in state aid and then they take it away. And then there's interest on deposit to reserves. So our general fund budget is $65,125,128. So to look at it in a pie chart, you get a better look at it. Instruction is 29.6%. You can see employee benefits at 14.8%. And then the next one, support services at 11.7, operation and maintenance at 9.8, tuition at 9.1, and so on down the line. So another way to look at our budget expenditures. So we look at salaries. So that's taking the others that you had seen, and we pulled all the salaries out, and salaries come out to $35.5 million of the budget. Employee benefits is still 9.6, and services is 5.5. Tuition, again, remains the same since there's no salaries in there. It's 5.9 million. Transportation at 3.7. Supplies and textbooks, it's about 1.4 million. Utilities, just under $1 million. And there are other things. Other things are things such as legal, auditing, things such as that. There's other things involved with it, but that's about $659,000. And then capital outlay we had talked about is just under 1.7. So there you come, get back to the $65,125,128. And then if you look at it in a pie chart, you can see salaries and employee benefits basically make up over almost 70% of the budget. And the rest, next would be tuition at 9.1, services at 8.5, and transportation at 5.7. So the budget, the general fund tax levy is $55,676,473. As I had mentioned, the percent increase is 2.47%. This includes the use of a healthcare adjustment to offset healthcare increase. By law, we're allowed to do that without having to go to a vote. You always hear about 2% cap. With the healthcare adjustment, you can go above, and we did at 2.47%. Contributing factors increases from the 2023-2024 budget. Benefits including health insurance is a little over $1 million increase. Student transportation, $221,000. Special ed programs and services, $213,000. One thing you have to remember about special education programs, we also receive revenue for that. And if we didn't have the in-district programs, they would be going out, we'd be paying for tuition on that and probably higher transportation costs. Athletics and co-curricular, $181,000. Instructional training and improvement at just under $151,000. So people always ask, why is there a difference among the sending districts in the amount of taxes needed to support the regional budget? The formula for tax sharing among sending districts is strictly governed by New Jersey education law. The Board of Education has no taxing authority. So the tax formula is based on taxable property wealth and student enrollment. The calculations performed each year by the state to arrive at the municipality's tax levy. It's known as a percent share. So you could see the tax levy, the $57,738,873, that also includes debt service. Because I believe you saw the other number, about $55 million. And you can see the 4 municipalities there, and that's the percent share. This was all calculated by the state. You can see it varies from the high of Montvale of 27.45% to a low to Hillsdale of 22.352%. And then to the far right, you can see what the tax levy is for each of the municipalities for the high school. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. And then when you include debt service, the overall goes from 2.47% tax levy increase to a 2.39%. The tax levy is 2.47, but when you add in debt service, it actually drops the increase to 2.39%. The increase in debt service is very minimal from year to year. So general fund and debt service tax levy. So you can see in Hillsdale, an average assessed home of $476,107. The tax is $3,585. The estimated annual increase is $74.42, or $6.20 monthly. In Montville, the average assessed home of $541,096. The tax is $3,818. The estimated annual increase is $60.73, and the monthly is $5.06. In Rivervale, the average assessed home of $592,000. The tax is $3,985. The estimated annual, in this case, it's a decrease of $30.72, and the decrease, a monthly decrease of $2.56. In Woodcliff Lake, the average assessed home, $908,212. The tax is $5,361. The estimated, again, this is a decrease of $65.27. On a monthly, excuse me, on a monthly, it's $5.44 decrease. So this is a tax impact history. So I got 8 years here worth of history of taxes. Hopefully you can see that in the red, that's a decrease. So it varies from year to year. The percent share varies from year to year. So sometimes municipalities will see a decrease based on the average assessed home, and then sometimes they'll see an increase. So it just varies from year to year. Board have questions?
I do. I have a quick question, Mr. Usami. So you had started off saying this was a very difficult budget. Is that because of just to clarify, like what you had put,
Based on the increases, like I showed
Right.
you, the employee benefits increased by a little
Got
over
it.
$1 million. So those are the type of things that we had to overcome in this
Yeah.
budget. So there are various things we did. We did cut some things within or reduced our figures. But mainly, we did buy some things this year as opposed what was in the budget. So we took that out of the budget and were able to purchase things this year because we had some funds available. And then based on the other things, we had to increase our fund balance. So we put a little more excess surplus in. We also increased our maintenance reserve. We also increased our extraordinary aid. And we also increased the emergency reserve. That was to help offset the health insurance increase. So emergency reserve was $250,000. As you saw on the slide, the healthcare adjustment was $256,000. So basically, that's $500,000. However, that didn't even cover the total increase. So it does help, but there are things that we had to do to balance the budget. And fortunately, we did get increased state aid. That also helped. However, the increase was not as large as we had anticipated. We had mentioned this previously at other meetings. A lot of that has to do with the declining enrollment. We were in a 7-year phase where we are one of the underfunded districts according to the funding formula. So over a 7-year period, districts like us, and our sending districts saw an increase in state aid. When I look at some of our sending districts and some of the other districts, we're looking at particularly K-8s, they received larger increases than we did. And that has a lot to do with our declining enrollment, as opposed to some of the sending districts are fortunate, their enrollment's increasing. Depends on how you want to look at it. That's
Yeah.
good or bad. But that helps. Then they get an enrollment adjustment as well. So that, again, they can get extra funding as well with an enrollment adjustment. Again, it allows you to go above 2%, but there's a reason for it. It's because your enrollment is increasing.
And one other question. In your tenure as BA, is this the first time we've had you to use emergency reserve?
Yes, this is the first time I've used it. Usually, emergency reserve can be used for increase in health care. And then the other thing that can be used, they kind of loosened their uses as far as emergency was concerned. So you could also use it for security. So there are some things, as long as it's eligible and as long as the state approves it. But healthcare increase isn't automatic. You can do that.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions? Thank you, Mr. Usami.
I wanted to just go back to one of the slides, Mr. Usami, if you don't mind. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Can you go to the staffing slide real quick? I just want to clarify that a little bit. It was number 20. And the reason is we have a lot of people here that are coming out to show support for our music program. And I was just envisioning as you were going through that, the entire crowd of people over here going, we don't want to cut those programs. We're not trying to cut those positions. So I want to just clarify something about what this actually means. So this is not talking about cutting a music position. And what we're actually talking about here is looking at how can we resection courses and absorb some of the 6 periods that we're running, as well as absorbing through breakage. And I'll give a specific example. We have a couple of teachers that don't have we anticipate, I should say, because we're doing student first schedules, which means our schedules are not yet finalized. But we have a couple of teachers that we anticipate not having a full 5-section load. We had a teacher that teaches a very specific difficult science level course offer retirement at our last meeting. And so part of the thought was, how are we going to replace that person? It would basically not be possible for us to hire someone off the street to teach the classes that he teaches. He does the molecular research classes. They're extremely involved. They're very high level. They're amazing. If anybody has ever had a chance to see some of the experiments the students are doing, it's incredible. You walk into the room and they'll tell you, what they're working on, and it's fascinating and interesting. So the thought was, we're likely not going to be able to just straight replace this person. That's not a realistic solution. But we have another teacher on staff, Dr. Malia, who is very qualified to be able to teach a course like that. So what we're looking at is shuffling some things around for her to take some of those higher level courses, for some other people to take some of the other higher level courses that she had been teaching, and basically absorbing that through both some additional 6 periods, but also through some of the empty sectioning that we had. So no courses in that scenario are being eliminated. The impact from the student side is going to be very minimal, but it is a budgetary absorption. So I want to just kind of explain a little bit about what that was. The other thing I wanted to point out is the reason that this came up with regard to music is we currently have 4 full-time music teachers between the schools. All 4 of them are amazing. Ms. Safari, who's our full-time music teacher, is actually doing an acting role right now as our music and world language supervisor. She's incredible. We have a leave replacement in for her, Ms. Magnus, who's incredible, Ms. Elkins, who's over here, unbelievable, Mr. Dor, and Mr. Uzemko, Craig, Uremko, thank you. Unbelievable, right? And so part of what we're grappling with is small numbers of students selecting those courses. So one of the things that we're looking at is at and actually the numbers are almost identical between the 2 schools. At Hills, we have about 35 total students signed up for band courses. There's about 100 course selections, but about 35 total students. And then we have about 45 students signed up for choir courses. Typically, a teacher load would be like 125 students. So that's low. But here's the thing, and this is, the example that I was trying to give is that when you look at the straight numbers with our music courses, and the numbers are almost the same at Valley. When you look at the straight numbers with our music courses, it doesn't look like it supports 4 full-time people. However, Ms. Safari, met with our senior admin team and basically laid out a schedule that showed all of the other things that the teachers are doing throughout the day, including flexibility with lessons, a ton of extracurricular programs that they're running, including things that are happening during lunch, during the day that they need to be flexible with in order to meet the needs of those students on like a one-to-one basis, doing lessons, helping with, student interests, helping students with some of the courses that they're running. And so, her argument was basically that, we need all 4 teachers. And the reason that this came up as a conversation is that we currently have Ms. Safari who is not in the classroom and is outside of the classroom. And there's a concern that, we may not be able to retain the leave replacement teacher that we currently have at Valley. We would love to retain her. I hope she stays with us for as long as we can have her. But there's a couple of things here that are sort of being merged together, where there was a concern that we may have a vacancy that would be difficult to fill, but also looking at how are we justifying the course selections versus the total number of people. And Ms. Safari did a great job of justifying it. I think it's very justified. We're not looking at reducing any of the teaching positions for music in order to keep that up. But the reason I bring it up, and I'm getting into a little bit of detail, is because we're really seeing this pattern, and Dr. Backenheimer and I were talking about it earlier, who, by the way, Dr. Backenheimer actually plays with the band over at Valley. I've seen him up in the bleachers a couple of times. Talking about why are these student enrollments so low? And so one of the things that we think is happening is we think that post-COVID, we're still seeing a dip in students who had not taken instrumental lessons during those years. We're still seeing this as a big dip. The other thing that we're looking at is trying to proactively have our teachers here do things to try to just engender interest in music. Ms. Elkins, I stopped by the other day. She had an open house. She set it up like a coffee shop during lunch. It was so cool. There were a ton of kids in there. She had kids performing. She had snacks. Kids who are not in the music program were coming in to watch their friends. There was lots of clapping. It was a really, really cool event. And so our teachers are definitely working hard to try to get interest in the programs. The other thing that we're working at, and I see Mr. Dorr doing this up here, and I see Mr. Uremko doing this down at Valley, but they're trying to reach down to our elementary and middle schools to show the students how much fun they can have playing an instrument at the high school. So they do a lot of outreach. I believe that both schools now have an initiative where 8th graders are going to be playing with the band in the fall at certain select football games, which is an awesome idea, which I think will really sort of get some of that excitement going, and hopefully try to create some interest. Now, the other piece that we're tackling as well, and we'll be hearing more about this at subsequent board meetings when Dr. Backenheimer and his team give curriculum updates, but one of the other things that they're looking at is a revamp of the music curriculum. So right now, the curriculum is on a 5-year cycle. Music is up this year, which means that they're going to be doing a deep dive to really look at these courses. This is something that has been brought up by our student reps. It's something that has been brought up by our teachers, that we don't have a lot of honors level courses. College Board only offers one AP course. We run it, and we typically get, it looks like next year we had 2 total students request to take it. So that's not a very high enrollment of that higher level course. So one of the questions that we have is there a way for us to create other higher level courses, perhaps in the honors track, that may be more enticing for students to want to take, that may also give a little bit of credit to the students who spend so much time on both choir and band, because we know that students who participate in those activities are spending a lot of time. Most of them are also involved in the extracurriculars that go along with them. There's Triumph Music Society, who puts on shows and talent nights and all kinds of other events that these students are very involved in, that is very time consuming. So the question, I think, is there a way to revamp that in the curriculum? All of that is to say that we're trying to see if there's ways that we can increase the course selections for these particular programs. We're not making any reductions in our staffing for next year. That's not what Mr. Usami is talking about in the budget. We're not looking at reducing any of our music positions. And we're also trying to be creative about, is there a way for us to get more kids involved and to make this more enticing for students? So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, because as you were going through that, I was imagining a collective cringe from our audience when we're talking about eliminating positions, because that's not what this slide was meant to explain. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Usami. Next, we have a presentation from Matthew Smeltzer from, did I get it right? Okay, from the SAI group, and it's regarding cell coverage and the PV and at Pascack Valley High School and the analysis.
How's it going? I'm Matt Smelser. I'm the RF engineering manager from SAI Group. We're the independent third-party company that was hired to come do a cellular assessment at Valley and propose a solution. Just a real brief on the company history. So we've been in business for over 25 years. I've been with the company for over 13. I'm going to use the term DAS a bunch, which stands for Distributed Antenna System. That's what provides the cellular coverage inside the building. I've designed over 100 of these DAS systems myself, and we've built and touched, maintained way more than that as a company. So there's just a small portfolio, a small look at the company. You guys will have a copy of this presentation, and you can look through in detail. But we hit venues large and small. We cover New England and New Jersey, Philadelphia area. So you'll see some of these venues like Fenway Park, Gillette Stadium, Logan Airport. We've worked at Newark Liberty Airport, bunch of venues in New York City as well. So just quick highlight. So this is the distributed antenna system. This is a little block diagram I made. Very simplistic look at the system, but essentially there's a signal source that's what your phone is talking to, going into this distributed antenna system, and that distributes the signal, all these antennas throughout the building, which is providing cellular coverage. So there's two different types of that signal source. You'll see at the bottom here, one says BDA, which is a repeater, and a dedicated source. So I'm going to go into a little more detail as to what each of those is, because they're relevant for what we propose as a solution. So a BDA or a repeater, it basically takes that external, so if you're driving around your car, the towers that are covering, and you have coverage in your home, so that is taking that signal and it's rebroadcasting it throughout the building. So there's a couple of drawbacks to doing that. One of which is weather, season, foliage. So if there's a lot of tree coverage around the building and the trees grow, and it's going to degrade that signal coming in. So that is dependent on the site, dependent on where your building sits and what the coverage looks like. So we went out on the roof and we assessed that for Valley. And the total user capacity for the repeater is all dependent on that tower. So if that tower were to go down, then the system inside the building would go down. So dedicated source, that's an independent radio. It's not reliant on that outside network. The user capacity will depend on the type of source that is deployed. And that's going to require, it's not connected to that external network, so it's going to require backhaul from the district in order to connect to the cellular network. So the proposed solution that we put together is kind of a hybrid of these two, depending on the carrier. So 3 different carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon. AT&T and T-Mobile are on the BDA repeater system as a proposed solution, and Verizon is on a dedicated source. So, and in this case, we're using 2 different radios, 64 active users on each radio, meaning somebody that can connect to the system and send a text message, connect. So it's somebody actively trying to use the system. So it's not just somebody in the building with their phone, because I know those numbers seem low, but if you're actually trying to call out or trying to make a call, send a text message, that's when that active users comes into play. So there are alternative solutions to AT&T and T-Mobile, but they definitely come at a cost, which I'm going to go into at the end here. So this balance for the proposed solution is, I say, the most cost-effective solution that can be presented. So I'll just go into the coverage. This is the current coverage. So this is basically what we walked around the school. We had scanning equipment that tested the coverage throughout the building. And the scale on the right, you'll see it goes from a pink down to a blue. This is a standard carrier scale that we use for thresholding. So blue meaning the worst. So So you can see it's pretty much blue throughout the entire building. So I'm sure you guys know that. There's very slight coverage on that second floor. You see it kind of goes into the light blue, but it's still very low. And some, I think, in the cafeteria down here on the first floor. Very slight, though. So this is the proposed coverage. So we take everything from our survey, we build it into a tool. Similar to like AutoCAD, we model the whole building, and we basically run predictions that show what the proposed coverage would look like. So as you can see, everything is no longer blue. So it's the same scale as the previous slide here. But so everything under the antennas, so you can see kind of the hot spots. That's where all the antennas are that are spread across the building. So that is the proposed coverage with the solution that I was just discussing. So, and jumping right into the pricing, so I put some not to exceed costing on here because if this project gets approved, goes through the budget, then we would like to be a company that bids on the overall solution. So the not to exceed cost here, so the total cost with the proposed solution, $225,000. That's just covering the inside. I know there were some talks about covering the field, which was not in our original scope of work, so this just covers the inside. The system is capable of expanding to the field if, obviously at an additional cost not included in that, but it is capable of doing that, whether that be through fiber optics to the press box or covering it from the roof of the school itself. So some additional options, so this dedicated source that I was talking about earlier, it is available for AT&T and T-Mobile, but it does come at a pretty significant cost, and it does come with associated annual fees. The proposed solution we had does not have any annual fees, with the exception of if you want system monitoring, if you want us to constantly be looking at it, seeing if there's any issues with the system, and then we're able to deploy and fix any issues. So that's the only annual cost related to the proposed one. But if you were to go with a dedicated source, and this is going to provide you with that dedicated connection, you're not on the external network, you don't have to worry about weather or anything like that. So that's a $90,000 initial cost for the radios themselves, and then a $20,000 cost annual fee. So that's yeah.
Can you go back?
Yep. Which one? Which slide?
So-
This one? Okay.
So here it says T-Mobile, AT&T.
Mhm.
There's a screen before, back, yeah,
This one? Yeah.
yeah. So here, the Verizon is that bottom proposed solution.
Yep.
Is that talking about that, the proposed solution?
Yeah, so it would be switching AT&T and T-Mobile from BDA repeater to dedicated source, just like Verizon.
Okay, I got you. That's
Correct.
the addition.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to.
Because Verizon has a solution that's very low cost in comparison to AT&T and T-Mobile, which they do not have. They do not offer. That's why I broke it out as a separate cost, and that's why it was proposed this way, because that solution is much more expensive than Verizon's solution, which, again, they're the only carrier that has that specific solution that is low cost.
Does having our own internal network, does that reduce cybersecurity threats, or it doesn't really matter?
So it's the same way your phone would interact with a tower outside. Cell phone connections are actually compared to Wi-Fi, they're very secure.
Okay.
So as far as a cellular solution, it's the same as if you're just walking around outside, and so it has nothing to do with. It's not going to increase any potential threats other than what already exists.
Yeah, so I know you showed that chart of how it works, kind of, and it's based on, yeah, proposed coverage. So obviously you can't guarantee that it's gonna do all of this, right?
So what our design tool does, the design tool is only as good as the engineer that's designing it, which goes for any design tool. I can assure you we do our due diligence, and we did an extensive assessment of the coverage on the roof, inside the building, outside the building. We also did a drive test around the surrounding area as well to assess where the signal is coming from a tower perspective. We find that when we deploy these systems that are proposed is very, very similar to what is actually deployed, because we will, once the install happens, we'll go and do an assessment, basically this same assessment again, and we'll rewalk the entire thing and basically show you the new coverage plots that, what you have now after the system was installed.
I have a question. You listed areas, ballparks and everything else. How about schools? How many, do you have a list of schools that have shown interest, or do you know how many schools in New Jersey have a cellular?
I don't know that number for New Jersey schools. I can tell you that a lot of the new schools that are being built, these systems are being now included as a part of the RFP. We've seen that a lot more recently. We've bid on a large number of them because they're recognizing that this is a problem up front before they even build the building. I know, well, depending on when the building was built, this might not have been a concern way back then, but it is now, and now they're addressing it up front.
So you're not seeing that many schools that are, only ones that are upgrading their facilities and building onto the structure? Right?
No, not necessarily. We are dealing with existing schools as well, but I'd say the majority of them are new schools. But depending on the school, where it sits, what it was built out of, it all factors in, and the outside tower environment. There's a lot of different factors that can come into play when some of them will have partial coverage, and we can deploy partial systems. You can see here that there's virtually no coverage throughout. So,
Yeah.
I have two questions, sorry. The $20,000, I guess, annual fee, sorry, that was like the last slide, second to last. That's stand corrected.
Oh. I broke it. Okay. Okay.
In that you said you're doing constant monitoring, but if we decline that, does that still mean that it's warranted, the work? And I guess the other question to that is, there's a lot of talk in the area of towers being built in the near future. Would this be necessary if those towers actually are built?
Potentially no, but depends on the tower location. And I can tell you that building a tower takes a very, very long time to build. Has to go through a lot of zoning and with the town, and it takes years to build a tower. And that's obvious. So this proposed solution, this is something we could deploy and turn on immediately once it's built. So this dedicated source, however, so that annual fee is just for the radios for T-Mobile and AT&T. So that is their ability to connect to the back to the network. So that is separate from the actual system. So the system monitoring, this $10,000 annual, that's for monitoring the system itself. So that's so this can be independent of the dedicated source. And that system monitoring is just to make sure that you don't lose coverage, something doesn't happen. I mean, we also provide a service where we'll just dispatch a technician, if you have a problem, if you don't opt to do this monitoring. But we have a NOC, which basically at our office that is constantly looking at a bunch of different sites we manage, and anytime an alarm comes up, it'll send us an email, send us an alert that says, hey, you have a problem. We can try to fix it remotely. We can log in remotely, and if we can't, then we can go deploy on site and fix the issue.
Where is the system going to be located, and is there any health or safety risk involved?
So the only thing with any cell phone system in general, electromagnetic radiation, EME, which basically it's similar to a Wi-Fi AP, broadcasting signal. So this tool will do a report, which will basically spit out basically the FCC regulations, and it'll provide you a tool and say, all right, if they're mounted up in the ceiling and somebody can only come within 4 feet of it, it'll tell us that everything passes regulations that you're not. Nothing's harmful. So the way these are built is that it's spreading coverage evenly throughout. So this is all one. Well, not in this case, not all one line. It's one coaxial line, which is the cable running through the ceiling, and it's tapping power off of it. So it's only giving a little bit of power to each antenna. So the only time we'd see kind of health risk is if we're taking a radio and putting it into like a single antenna, and that single antenna is like mounted in a spot where you can touch it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just have a question. Why is it, so red shows you strong coverage. Why is it at the center of the red parts is blue?
So that's just a little pictogram of the antenna itself.
Oh, so it's not.
Yeah,
not
so,
bad
sorry,
coverage.
yeah, I didn't explain
Thanks.
that before, yeah.
How long would this take for your company to do?
To install the system, so the equipment is usually the longest lead time part. So the active equipment, the radios that we have to order, that is usually a 4 to 6 week lead time to order that equipment. The rest of the system, the antennas, the cabling, that is like 1 to 2 weeks. That's a lot shorter of a time frame. There's a chance we can bring that 4 to 6 week lead time down, but I'd just say that to be safe. And then the actual install itself, I mean, it could be done over a summer break.
So the installation would be like disruptive enough where you wouldn't want to do it during a school year?
Ideally, no. But so that not to exceed cost was assuming standard hours. So I know, like nights and weekends, if you wanted to do it while school was in session, that cost would go up.
Got it.
So that's
Okay.
assuming we had free and clear access during first shift.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a presentation by Dr. Barry Fackenheimer, Dr. Mark Russo, and Megan Graziano, and it is the department highlights for math and science.
All right, so good evening. I know we've had a lot of presentations this evening. This comes from our curriculum committee met several weeks ago. And as part of our curriculum committee, we had each of our supervisors and myself present kind of highlights of things that have been going on the past several months in each of our academic departments, points of pride, new curriculum areas, new programs, awards won, programs going on, lots of good things. You certainly hear a lot of it. There was even more so to share, and we heard that the board wanted to hear more beyond just the curriculum committee. So we're here this evening to give you a comprehensive but succinct overview of our math and computer science department and our science and tech ed department, as well as a brief overview of our ongoing review of our assessments, both mid-year and final, and some of the changes and adjustments we are making along the way as a result. So to start things off, Dr. Russo.
Thank you so much to the board for having me. And I also just want to, quickly before I start, I just want to thank all the math teachers in the district, some of the finest, hardest working individuals I know, and to the students, so many of whom work so hard in difficult courses, really put in time and energy to to excel. So just briefly, the vision of the Pascack Valley Regional High School District Math Department is to facilitate the construction of meaningful mathematical knowledge and skills with the ultimate goal of promoting the personal and professional growth of each student. This vision empowers students by helping them expand professional opportunities, understanding and critiquing the world, and also experiencing wonder, joy, and beauty. So I will try and be brief just to share a little bit about what's going on in curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So in our core courses in mathematics, we are in the process of resequencing to geometry, then Algebra 1, then Algebra 2 for students that are not already accelerated in middle school. This is the first year of Geometry First, and we are continuing to look at how we can make that the best experience for some of our incoming freshmen as we also prepare to have them take Algebra 1 followed by Algebra 2 in subsequent years. We're looking at articulation and alignment to standards, and there are also new standards from New Jersey for this coming fall that we're looking to make sure we are in line and exceeding. In terms of our elective courses, we're committed to probability and statistics for all students because while all mathematics is beautiful and amazing, it is probably true that statistical knowledge is important for more students as they become consumers and producers of information as adults. So we're looking at making sure that all students have those experiences. We've increased our dual enrollment program, so that we're now in our third year. For the first 2 years, we just had the option of calculus, and we had an average of 36 students each of those 2 years. This year, after expanding to college algebra, statistics, and discrete math, we have 119 students. So that's a great opportunity for them to earn college credit. In addition, we have always had a rigorous and engaging honors pre-calculus course, and this year is the first year of a new AP pre-calculus. So without much of, well, there certainly have been adjustments, but the rigor has always been there. So we have 70 students now for the first time who have that opportunity. Briefly on computer science, we're consistently looking at an ever-changing field. We've implemented cybersecurity opportunities and experiences for students in our advanced topics class, and we have a PLC that's currently looking at how we can support and enhance some of the work we're doing with Java by also giving students experience in Python. Briefly, I don't want to short shift instruction. We are consistently looking at what, the NCTM's 8 mathematics teaching practices and how we can best support students engaging deeply with mathematics. 2 of these practices I will highlight briefly. One is just connecting between various mathematical representations. So we're not just focused on equations, we're focused on modeling and graphs and tables and contexts and trying to have conversations amongst those things. And not just conversations with a math, but also with one another as the ability to talk about and reason through and explain mathematics can help our peers, certainly our students, but also help ourselves better understand the content. In computer science, we're consistently and continually looking at how we can develop students' computational thinking skills, which is incredibly important for their ability to engage with computer science, but also can expand to other aspects of life. And then briefly, just a word on assessment. Our assessments in mathematics and computer science, they're designed to give students and teachers feedback on students' knowledge of concepts and skills, but also their ability to synthesize data and apply it to new contexts. We believe very strongly in targeted, meaningful feedback. That is what assessment is for. And we do this through sort of the typical array of quizzes and exams. We also have benchmark assessments, so we can see how well we're doing against state standards. And we also want to make sure that students are well prepared for any sorts of exams that they're going to need for other aspects of their life, whether it's just state standardized tests or the SAT or ACT. We're always looking to find that right balance between supporting students and then helping them achieve and understand rigorous material. And in doing that, we ask teachers and students regularly how they're experiencing not just assessments in mathematics and computer science, but mathematics and computer science more generally, as we try and continue to take a great program and make it better. At this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Graziano to talk about science and tech ed.
Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to say thank you for inviting us here tonight, because one of the great joys of this position is getting to brag about all the amazing things we're seeing happening in the classroom every single day by our all-star faculty of teachers and our incredible students who really find their passions in the classroom and run with it, which is what makes this job just so amazing. So unlike math, we don't have any new courses or sequences, so I just wanted to take some time to highlight some of the great things that are happening within some of our courses, within our professional development for our teachers. One thing that I'd like to point out at the very beginning is that we did have several students who were very successful in the Terra North Jersey STEM Fair. 2 first place category awards were actually awarded to students from our district, one of whom is here tonight, Miss Olivia. Yes, round of applause. So we had students who won first place awards, and we had 10 students in total that won awards. The science fair, I actually had a chance to go for the first time ever, and I was blown away by the level and quality of projects that were there from all schools. So to see our students achieve so highly there was just outstanding, and really a testament to the program that has been developed here. We also have recently had a visit from a company called Laerdal, which Dr. Backenheimer was kind enough to connect me with a representative from there, and he brought in a patient simulator, which our honors anatomy and physiology students got an opportunity to work with hands-on. These are patient simulators that you would see in medical schools, in nursing schools, and they had an opportunity to work with it hands-on, do some diagnostic work, and it was a really incredible day, and we're hoping to continue bringing experiences like that to our students who are interested specifically in the medical field.
As an aside, they scream and vomit on command.
Yeah, that was probably the students' favorite part. We also partnered with Veolia and the Woodcliff Lake Town Council to do a cleanup recently, about a month ago, and it really went fantastically. That was another event I got to go to. We had several students, I'm going to say between 20 and 30 students from the district that volunteered their time on a weekend to come and clean up at the Woodcliff Lake Reservoir, and I was just so pleased with the turnout, considering this was the first year we've organized something like this. This is something we're planning on continuing in the future. And so special thanks to Ms. Schwartzman, who really led the initiative on that, and the environmental clubs who a lot of our students there participated with that.
And I'd also want to just give a thanks to Ms. Calderon, who made that connection for us to begin with. So thank you.
Thank you very much for opening that door. It was a great opportunity. We also partnered this year with Kidwind through a professional development experience that one of our teachers had. They are a program that really supports the education of climate change and clean energy. And so we had about 11 of our science and STEM teachers participate in professional development, along with teachers from all 4 of our sending districts together in one room over multiple days, where they were able to learn a lot about clean energy and activities that they could bring into the classroom. We then parlayed that into the challenge that Pascack Valley used during their STEM League competition. This was the first time ever that Pascack has actually hosted a STEM League competition. This is something that they've been participating for for many, many years. But it was incredibly successful. We got a ton of fantastic feedback. We hosted 8 different districts and had teams in. Our teachers, who I would like to give a very special shout out to, Jim Kennedy, Danielle DeKintel, Bill Koenig, and Adam Ostrowski, for really going above and beyond in planning this incredible event. I'm going to actually switch over there so you can see that. The images over to the right there were from that event, where they not only brought in these teams and hosted this challenge where students were asked to design a floating wind turbine to produce as much energy as possible, and given this challenge in only a short period of time, they were then also giving oral presentations to a team of engineers and people that work in the clean energy industry right now, who were able to give our students real-time feedback, from the professionals, which was incredible. So they actually brought in 10 people from outside the district to ask as the judges and have a keynote speaker. Again, it was absolutely wonderful. And I'd also like to shout out Mr. Sherman's students who worked hard to capture that, and they made a beautiful segment for PVTV. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I suggest you do. And my last note here about our STEM department, both buildings, Pascack Hills and Pascack Valley, were awarded the ITEEA, which stands for the International Technology and Engineering Educators Association, award of the STEM School of Excellence. Only 35 awards were given out throughout the nation this year, and 2 of them went to our schools. And that is a real testament to the incredible work done by our STEM and engineering departments, as well as our robotics teams, our science teachers, our math teachers. That's a very big deal and something I'm very, very proud of. So those are just a few of our highlights. Real quickly, I could certainly mention, we are in our first year of utilizing the Linkit benchmark assessments. This is great because they're directly aligned to state standards, and they do mirror what the students will see on the NJSLA assessment. And so this is a really great opportunity for them to practice with questions that are going to be very similar. A lot of them are questions that had previously been on earlier tests. They're aligned to the 3 dimensions of science instruction and assessment. Here you can see the practices, the content, and the cross-cutting concepts. And we're able then to use that data not only on the content and the practices, but also the types of questions that the students are doing well with, the ones that they struggle with, and then infuse that into our instruction to help prepare our students moving forward. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back over to Dr. Backenheimer.
And just to reiterate the points here, I had a chance to obviously observe a whole lot of these events that they were talking about firsthand. And it's really impressive what our students are doing and how our staff and supervisors are supporting our students. So thank you both, and thank you to your staff for all that they're doing. Now I just want to transition over to talk about department assessments. As Mrs. Graziano mentioned, every department for the last several years, if you recall, we started the department metric program, where every department came up with a way to answer the question, how do we know how we're doing? These were internal assessments that each department developed in order to check out and see, for when we had that gap during the pandemic and no state assessments, we weren't exactly sure. We wanted to make sure that we were accomplishing our goals. Obviously, with state assessments swinging back in, we now had those as well. And then we also have assessments that we look at in terms of our mid-year assessments and end-of-year assessments that some departments administer. So I wanted to talk about that just a little bit. The 2 departments represented here are 2 out of the 3 testable departments that our students are tested on. We just went through NJGPA, which is a required test for our juniors for graduation a few weeks ago. And in a very short time, we're going to start our NJSLA assessments for our freshmen in math, science, and ELA. We had strong showings the last 2 years in our scores, especially last year. We were commended by the state during our QSAT inspection for our growth in a lot of those areas. So to talk about assessments, every year we review the process. We look at what we're doing in terms of both our department metrics, like the Linkit examples. We look at what we're doing in terms of our classroom practices, and we look at our assessments that we're giving. All of you remember when you were back in high school, midterms and finals perhaps were things that caused you a great deal of stress. Our goal is not to cause students stress, but our goal is, as we take a look, to be able to give a clear snapshot of feedback of our students' progress for both them and their teachers so instruction can be adjusted in the process. The way that we're looking at that specifically in math and science, when students who are going to be majoring in these areas in college or that take general education courses in these areas, when they get to college, predominantly midterms and finals, are the way these students are assessed in higher education. With an excess of 94% of our students or more going on to higher ed, 4-year colleges, we certainly want to make sure that our students are well prepared for that experience along the way. So every year we look at our process, we look at what we're doing, we talk to students, we talk to staff, we see what's working and what's not, and I really have to give credit to Dr. Russo and Mrs. Graziano, who really did a massive dive the last 2 years in adjusting our system to be what's best for students, and it's always really taking a look at what can we do better. So one adjustment we made was taking a look at making sure that the final grade for students who are taking these larger scale assessments doesn't exceed 7.45% of their grade. It means that they're being assessed, but if you don't do well, it's not going to really hurt you so badly. And if you do well, it's not going to give you an unfair gain across the board. And we have some data to support that as well, that as looking at our midterm assessments, that there really was not a major change for students if they didn't do well, or if they did do well, it really was mostly in line with their grade in that class along the way. Again, as I mentioned, our major goal is really preparing students for their future college and career plans along the way. But as Mrs. Graziano and Dr. Russo mentioned, we want to also make sure that we're meeting our standards. The New Jersey standards for mathematics and science education, we want to make sure our assessments are aligned with that. How do we know if we're meeting the standards? By assessing our students and cross-checking and seeing what we're doing. We're also making sure oops, went the other way there, that we're using an assessment checklist this year when teachers are giving assessments. This makes sure that it's posted up on Canvas, students are aware of what they're being tested, that there are review sheets going on, and that there's feedback going on as part of the process. They understand if they got something wrong, why they got something wrong, and not just the answer for the sake of the grade, but that really the process behind it. We really made sure that as part of our mid-year assessment process, that teachers were reviewing with students what was going on, and as you'll soon see when the schedule gets dropped in a few days, at our end-of-year process, we're going to make sure that students have an opportunity to find out how they did on their end-of-year assessments as well, which was something that was lacking in previous years. They would take their test, find out their grade on their transcript, and never find out what was going on with the assessments. Our goal here, of course, is to strike a balance between instructional time and assessment time without having, short shrifting really either one. But again, making sure we have time for that feedback and review for students so they understand the why behind the assessments that are there. We've really tried to work with a continual feedback loop. This year, after our midterm assessments, both Dr. Russo and Mrs. Graziano went into multiple classrooms in both schools to talk to students at length about what worked, what didn't, feedback on ways that we can make things better, and took that into account to help adjust for our final exam schedule and into next year. And again, one of the major improvements that we're making sure we've heard students and adjusting along the way is teachers' availability for extra help. As a result of some grant money and some availability that we have, we're going to have, in addition to our teachers' regular availability, we're going to have both math, science, and ELA help centers available for students before school and after school, in addition to regular times for students who need some extra help getting ready for those larger scale assessments. So we're going to be very pleased to offer that opportunity for students before and during exams when that's going on. Anything addition to add for your departments? Any questions from the board?
I actually do. More of a comment. I really want to thank you for taking a look at this, because this is something that's come up probably for 20 years, if not longer. And the fact that it's being used more as an instructional tool now. And we did have a lot of community input throughout the years as well. And I know one of the people who came to me made a great point, because, obviously we're preparing, like you said, a lot of these kids to continue with college. But even in college, they're a semester and then they're switching a class. So they're not really expected to retain something for an entire year. It's much shorter blocks of time. So these diagnostic assessments are very helpful for these kids as they're progressing through the year. So I appreciate all the time and effort you put into looking and doing that deep dive again into what's going on and what's working and what could be changed. So we appreciate those changes.
Thank you.
I have a few things to ask. So there used to be a math and writing center. Is there still a math center? How well is that utilized by students?
So we have a math center in both buildings during lunch 3 days a week. And depending on sort of the ebb and flow of the year, it can be maybe overutilized, but there are consistently students in the math center in both buildings. So it's a great opportunity that we like to be able to provide for students in addition to teacher extra help. And then in addition to what Dr. Backenheimer mentioned about the added math centers. So we were able to provide double math centers leading up to the midterm period. Okay. So we're going to have that for the final exam period in addition to the AM and PM. So they are being utilized. They were last year and they are again this year.
Is there any thought, I know for students, lunchtime is a time where they do clubs and they do this, that, and the other thing also. Is there any plan or thought to maybe doing centers like after school or before school or anything like that? Because I know I've heard from students, it's during lunch and I had, I don't know, my ASPCA club, or I don't know if they'll know if that's a real club, but
Right.
but
Yep.
so yeah. Yeah, so
Yep.
lab, exactly. So I would love to know that. Like, is there a time that it's going to be expanded?
No, yeah, we would love to be able to expand the math center. So it's not even across the board, there are some past periods available at Pascack Valley where we have been able to offer additional help that's not during lunch. We recognize the lab challenge, which is why we want to spread it over multiple days so that all students have that opportunity. We had more, we love labs. We love labs. We had more availability of funding last year where we were able to offer the Math Center more often. But if there's any way to expand the availability of the Math Center, we would certainly want to do that. And to your point about offering it throughout the day or after school. But I do think that our availability of funds leading up to final exam period will also give us that information as to how many students come before school, how many come after school, as we try and use our funds appropriately to help students.
Okay. I know with science, they have, I heard that like similar type of thing. I don't know if it's called science centers or anything like that. But from what I understand, word on the street, I don't know if it's utilized or maybe, I don't know if it's that students don't know. What is your experience with science with that?
So we don't have a science help center now the way that we have a math lab and the writing center. So this is actually going to be new, and this is actually a direct result of feedback that we got when talking to students. When we were in the classroom and we asked, the way it was presented to them was, do you see value in this, and how can we help you be as successful as possible? And one student said to me very directly, and I said to Dr. Rackenheimer as well, if we could have something similar to the Math Center for science, that would be really helpful. So I do want to point out, too, I know science is a little different, where we need to have different certs to teach physics, chemistry, and biology. And luckily, we actually have the grant money to support having all three. So we're going to have 3 different teachers, one with each cert, both in the morning and in the afternoon during this time leading up to exams and afterwards. If the funding could ever become available and we see that this is utilized properly, I would be very excited about starting something like that and expanding that for the sciences to our students as well.
Okay. And then so the whole question of how do we know how we're doing? How do we get student feedback? Is it like just talking? Is it written out like, hey, I wish we spent more time on, I don't know, I'd be making things up, but how do we know what the students need and what their academic needs are?
Sure. So just the first part is, so as you might imagine, it's challenging. If you are doing well in a class, your feedback is going to be, yeah, things are going great. And if you're struggling in a class, whether that's partial student, partial teacher, partial material, whatever it may be, your opinion might be a little bit different. So it's very hard to tease that out. And I've got to give both Mrs. Graziano and Dr. Russo credit, whether it's talking to students individually, having focus groups with students, getting to different levels of classes, different types of classes, really trying to tease that out afterwards. In addition, I've had meetings with our student government in both schools as well as a chance to talk to them. They're the representative of our students, kind of getting their feedback on where things are and what kind of things they might be looking for in terms of things that we can as a school to do to really help have them be a little bit more successful. And then obviously we also have our climate survey, which gives us an overall view of the school and the support that students are getting.
I would love to maybe consider like in biology or AP biology, hey, the end of the semester or even middle of the semester, right? For our teachers to be able to say, oh, I got a lot of student feedback that perhaps, they didn't understand what they got wrong on these particular tests. They need more feedback that way. I think those are all great ways that it's done, but I would love to see maybe like across the board, just students sitting in class saying, okay, not a suggestion box, but like, okay, this is what I feel helped or didn't help. And of course, there's a spectrum of what kind of feedback you're going to get from different students, but I'd love to get more feedback from students on what works and what doesn't.
And to address that as part of the schedule that we're putting together. So in the past, when we've had end-of-the-year assessments, student has taken their exams and the year is over. We've built in now that the exams, when the schedule comes out, and you'll see shortly, there's a feedback day. And so the day is designed that students will get a chance to go over the exam, understand pieces, and additionally, kind of set an action plan for themselves for the next year that they'll give to their teachers, that they can then see that feedback almost as a note to themselves for next year. But the teachers also see that data too and see what needs to be adjusted as well. So we've been really trying to take that and think about how can we really take that information at the end of the year and really turn that into something that's going to help our students and our teachers adjust.
Got it. I really appreciate everything you all do, and I appreciate you hearing what we have to say. I think the only person as of tonight who has been on this board for 5 years or longer is Jim. Everybody else is pretty relatively under 5 years or newer. And I feel like if we are at an 8 out of 10, we have a great district. But there's always room for improvement if you're not a 10, and most places are not going to be a 10. So I think with this relatively newer sort of board, I think that we should aim for the stars. And I really do think that we should aim to go that next level up. And so I appreciate all of your efforts in doing that. And I really look forward to a lot more feedback from, I think this is great because as far as in everything else being there, academics is the crux of everything for our district and any district. So I really, really appreciate it.
On the feedback, the feedback day that you're talking about, have you considered doing just course evaluations? Like at the end of the semester, before checking out for the semester, sending a type of form and just getting anonymous real feedback from a student, not just on the course content, the instructor, just whatever kind of wonderful questions you have for these students, but not having it in front of that instructor, having it, you know how it is. You teach in college level, as I do, and I think that taking that out, that having that anonymity, really can help have that student come out and explain, not risking, this person might be writing me a recommendation. I gotta be nice, so just taking that out maybe might be a good thing to try.
No, appreciate that suggestion. I think obviously we'd have to be careful how we tease that out, right? Because we don't want it to be personal. We instead want it to be constructive on ways that we can all improve, which is our ultimate goal. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we have comments from the public. We're going to do things a little bit different today. Usually the first comments from the public are on agenda items only, but we are going to put you all out of your misery so you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. And what we're going to do, citizens are invited to make comments regarding agenda or non-agenda items, and you are limited to 3 minutes according to the Pascack Valley Regional High School District Board of Education Policy Number 0167. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, sign in at the podium, and state their name, town of residence, and obviously whatever. If you're speaking about an agenda item, let us know. If not, whatever you're speaking about. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh.
Sorry. My name is Antoinette McKay. I'm from Woodcliff Lake. I have 2 sons that attend Pascack Hills currently that are sophomores. I think there's a little bit of confusion why, I'm here. It's not about the teachers potentially, leaving. It's more about the curriculum. It's about the classes that are not going to be offered. I just want to ask the board, do you understand about the music department, about music theory, AP music theory and music tech? It was wonderful hearing from, the other departments and stuff and, the great things, but not all kids go into math and science and social studies. There's a lot of kids that go into music, the arts, and Pascack Hills is really falling short on that. And, it's really upsetting over that. And I don't think you realize that those 3 classes you guys are looking to cut and maybe put off for a year or 2 are mandatory if you want to go to music school for, teaching for music, for composition, to be a performer, anything in music. You need these basic classes that you are now taking away from your current students. During last week's spring break, my family visited 5 universities in Florida. Out of those 5, 4 of them, we toured their music department to meet with college professors, as a music major, those are separate departments, completely separate. Did you know to apply to colleges as a music major, whether it's music performance, music education, or music composition, to name a few, you not only need to apply to the main college and have good grades, good GPA, good test scores, recommendations, and be a well-rounded student in order to meet the admission standards. On top of that, you also need to apply separately to the music department and have a portfolio including performances, accolades received over your high school years. You have to audition via video first, then, if invited, you perform in person at each school for a panel of professors. I ask you, how many other students have to do this for other majors that they would be going for? While visiting each school, we asked both the student ambassadors and the professors of the head of the Department of Percussion, what should my son, who wants to be music performance, what should he be doing to prepare himself to go to these schools? And each and every one of them said, expose yourself to all instruments you need to play for percussion. Practice your sight reading so you can audition with a minimum of 3 separate instruments and take music theory. Not only 1 year, but many years to get the basic needs for college. Now, I reached out to the superintendent after the last Board of Ed meeting that I watched online, and I asked her, what do we do? And part of the, coming back at me, which was that an online AP music theory class is offered. Well, my son, who has never taken music theory, will not be able to do this online. I don't know if you guys have looked at the syllabus. If you have tried this yourselves, it's impossible.
Would you
Yeah,
wrap it up,
I'm
please?
sorry.
That's okay.
I understand the argument about cutting the classes due to low enrollment, but I ask you, why do we have low enrollment? Have you each personally spoke to the music teachers? Have you asked them, are these classes important for future education? Have you looked at why you have middle schoolers not attending Pascack Hills and going to other high schools? Is it because we don't offer students enough opportunities for music and the arts? And why are we not being competitive? Why are we not looking at the bigger picture? Do you realize you have at least 5 current seniors that I know of going to colleges for music education and composition in schools like NYU, University of Maryland, Stevens Institute of Technology, and JMU? I think those are pretty good schools to be going to for music.
Ms. McKay,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Great budget presentation. It's Michael Fox, Hillsdale. Did I need any more information? We're
No.
good? Okay, good. Thank you. All right, I'm actually here in regard to the testing report that was just given, so I just want to kind of share some notes with the board on some of my feelings in regard to some of the assessments that are transpiring here at Pascack Valley and how I feel they're unfair for the students in Pascack Regional in comparison to other schools. So as you may or may not know or be aware, I've been in touch with the administration since February 2023 in the conversation of midterms and finals here at both schools. I asked for data on midterms and finals for the last 2 years. That's midterms last year, finals, midterms this year. How many students overall averages went up, stayed the same, or went down as a result of the exam. To date, I've not received any data that has shown me any of the following. In discussions with the administration, and we've had great discussions I've had with Ms. Bellotti, I've also had more challenging conversations with some of the other administrators in regard to, we kind of agree that 50 to 60%, and I think that's light, of students' grades, student averages go down after these exams, which is an arbitrary number we tended to agree upon. This negatively affects students who are competing against students from other school districts for college acceptances. I asked why we give these exams, and the reply consistently was, college students come back and say they were helpful, which is completely subjective information, not data-driven as I expected. I asked if they felt this was a best practice for high schools, and they said yes. I completely disagree with them on these high-stake weighted tests. As you just heard, they're 7.5 and 7.5. Last year they were 10 and 10, so that's 15% on 2 tests go towards the final grade. A solution is to give benchmark assessments, which they were talking about, I would say on 8-week intervals if possible, that can be given to enhance learning and mastery for all students, which occur more often. In the end, we are all here to help students and not hurt them. Over the past 4 to 5 years, the district has hurt many students with these exams in comparison to other high schools who do not administer these exams, such as Bergen Academies, Northern Valley, Old Tappan, Northern Valley Demarest, Tenafly, Rampo Indian Hills, Ridgewood, Westwood, West Morris, and Morris Regional. These are just some of the top high schools I contacted to find out that information. There are many more. The majority of colleges do not require SAT scores anymore, making GPA that much more important. PV students are at a disadvantage competing against high schools from other schools in the area who do not have their grades suffer due to these exams. For a year and a half now, I've asked the administration to analyze the value of these exams based on data. I have stressed the point that no college student takes exams on 5 months or 10 months of material, let alone 14 to 18-year-olds. My perspective is that these exams should be eliminated and alternative assessments should be considered. Not only would this benefit students for college admissions, but also improve their social and emotional well-being and reduce the loss of instructional time. Greater value should be placed on teacher-student contact time. I appreciate your time. I know it's shorter here, and I hope the administration takes this matter seriously. I heard the term cutting edge in the budget presentation, and I see I see this as an outdated practice. Finally, no one here should believe negatively impacting students is a positive, and this practice is just not necessary at PV. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Mr. Fox, before you leave, we've had very good conversations about this, and he did not share. He's also an administrator who has students in the district, and we've had very deep conversations, which you've alluded to, about the wellness of the students and some of the negative impact. And I think that's a big push for our district, so that is something we also need to consider, and I thank you for bringing that point up as well.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hi, I'm Rhonda Swiderski. I'm from Woodcliff Lake. Right, that's all I have. I've never done this, so yeah, okay, great, thanks. All right, so I'm Rhonda Swiderski. I'm from Woodcliff Lake, and I'm the president of the Music Parents Association. For me and Megan Geyer for the last 2 years have kind of interchanged president and vice president here at Pascack Hills. When I heard that the Board of Education was considering cutting 2 music programs, I was extremely disappointed because I thought we were making strides in the last couple of years. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but music theory is an essential class for students who plan to major in music in college. My son Brendan, who's a senior and will be attending college in the fall at JMU, is going for music education. He went through a grueling audition process at several different colleges. In fact, every college that he applied to the regular college and had to do a second college application for the music school, and then had to audition as well. Luckily, he was admitted to the music program at JMU, but sight reading was an area that he definitely struggled with. He is in the music theory program this year. He's the one and only student in the intro class, because the intro class and the AP class are given during the same section. And so, of course, the AP moves very quickly. My son has an IEP, and it was just too rigorous for him. Had they offered something like this in a separate section, I think that he would have gotten a little bit more out of it than having to learn by himself, like with a book, which is basically what he's doing. He's teaching himself. Mrs. Elkin, of course, is giving him support, but she has to teach the AP students because they have to take an AP exam. It's closed. Sorry. I apologize. So, Mr. Dorr and Miss Elkin provided my son with a great foundation, but there's so much more that's needed to help our kids to prepare to be music majors in college. I had my son work with a music tutor, but in actuality, I don't think I should have had to. Many high schools, including the one that I work at, offer programs, whether it be during the school year or over the summer, like a portfolio prep or a music audition prep program. And I don't think Hills offers anything like that, which puts our kids at a disadvantage. I already mentioned the thing about the music theory. I think it would be really a disservice to our music majors to take away music theory and not offer it every year. Even if you just offered the intro a little bit earlier and then an AP, I think it would really help children who are going out there. What Ms. McKay said, my son had to do sight reading. He had to do scales. He plays percussion as well. He had to do 3 separate instruments in his audition in front of a panel of people, and then he had to interview with them. And he's a 17-year-old student. I couldn't even imagine doing that, and he did that at every school that he applied to. So I just want you to keep them in your mind and in your thoughts, because our music program, my son's not a scholar. He's very smart, but he's not into the math and the science. And the band, marching band, it saved him. He really struggled in middle school. And if we really support the arts like we say we want to, which is important to every student, I just really hope that we have your support. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Zwidarski.
Hello? Okay, it's on. Hello, my name is Derek Geyer. I am a senior at Pascack Hills currently, and I am here to discuss the proposed policy changes regarding making AP Music Theory a bi-yearly course instead of a course that's offered every year, which I know has been on the table. 2 years ago, my sophomore year, I decided that in order to try and further facilitate my growing passion for music at the time, that I would take the AP Music Theory course at Pascack Hills. Previous year during COVID, I didn't know it existed. There are only 3 students in that class, a very small size, and that small size allowed for Mrs. Elkin, who teaches the class, to be able to personally teach each of us one-on-one and provide help when we needed it. And I was able to understand the content far greater than I had in any of my other classes for that year. Then, the following year, I took music technology, where Mr. Dorr taught me about the way that modern music is made and all of the technical skills of using technology for music. And more importantly, it gave me insight into what anyone in the modern music industry needs in order to be successful. This is something that I am now grateful for as I'm going off to NYU to dive headfirst into the world of music with screen scoring. It is with this experience that I stand here today, and with which I am voicing my concerns. The sparingly few courses that are offered by the music department are already an obscurity to most of the student body here. If you ask any randomly selected student at this school about an AP music theory class, they likely will have no idea what you're even talking about, especially those in the freshman class. If these classes are only offered bi-yearly, I doubt that this will somehow to raise awareness of the courses to the average incoming students, and may even discourage enrollment for many, as only being available once every 2 years may cause people to perceive it as not an important class. These two classes are valuable resources for students who are interested in pursuing a career in the music industry, whether performance, producing, composing, or just people who want to understand music on a deeper level than just the band and choir classes can provide alone. In every department, you will see a gradation to the courses that are offered for science, math, and English. You'll see classes dedicated towards the more basic, more elementary ideas of the concepts, and then you'll see classes that are more specialized, that are more advanced, honors, AP. If you go to English department, you have literature of the Holocaust, language, myth, and culture, philosophy and literature, all these specializations. AP Music Theory and Music Tech are the specializations of our music departments and what the courses they can offer. It feels unfair that the board might find it acceptable to potentially discourage any musically talented students who may want to pursue those specialized and unique electives in the music department. I raise these concerns because I know how much our music department has to constantly push, whether it's the marching band for crucial field practice time, whether it's the MPA raising fundraiser after fundraiser after fundraiser just to make up for the sparse funding the department receives, or whether it is to even find new students who are interested in enrolling for music programs because they had no idea that our music department had anything to offer besides basic courses. I know students who go to the school who have an interest in music, who have talent, who can play instruments, but they aren't involved in the music department to such a high extent as, like, you guys probably would have wanted. There's students here who didn't even know about half of these music classes until their junior or senior year, simply because there wasn't enough outreach to them when they first arrived here to convince them that, hey, the music department has more to offer than just playing a trumpet once a week. I think that you should take these concerns and take them seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geyer. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, my name is Michael McKay, and I am a sophomore here at Pascack Hills. I'm here to talk about the decision to cut some music classes here at Pascack Hills. I am a proud member of this Pascack Hills music department. I strive to be in as much programs as I can be, and I just am not happy with the decision to cut music theory. I believe, as a music major, hopefully wanting to go for music performance, I'm going to need it, as many future music majors are going to need it to get into college. I've heard from my friends that they're going to need music theory. They're going to need a whole lot of music stuff that you possibly could be taking away from them, because I've heard from them that you're going to need music theory to audition. You need it for when you're in the classes. You need it for when you want to succeed in this field. When you audition for the music department, it's a whole other process besides just going into the school. You have to audition to get into the music department, where you have to play 3 different instruments and know the scales and know what you're doing, what And this is all that music theory is going to teach you. Over this past spring break, I have talked to 4 college music departments, including the University of Florida and Florida State University, where they have all unanimously said that I should take music theory now so I'm better prepared for when I am in the classes, so I can get the major I want. Also, it benefits me as a music student where I can do better in some of my required music classes in college and not fall behind. I try to work very hard with my parents, Mr. Casamento, Mrs. Punham, Mr. Dort, and Mrs. Elkin to set me up for success for my future career. By taking music theory, it helps me expand my musical knowledge and help me understand what the song is asking me to do. I am looking to grow my percussive abilities by getting better at instruments like the marimba, where I hope to apply these scales and techniques when I am in performances. And this is stuff that music theory teaches me. If these classes are canceled, if these classes were canceled, I was offered an AP music theory class online, but personally, I need the extra help that an in-person class is going to give me because I have an IEP, and sometimes the online classes aren't going to be enough for me to understand what is going on. I need that extra one-on-one time to actually break down what is going on and actually learn how to do the proper techniques and stuff. I am a percussionist, and it is harder for me to learn some of this stuff because I haven't learned any of it really at all. I've only known how to bang things and people clap for me. But now that I need music theory for marimba and all this other stuff, I need music theory. So in conclusion, if this is taken away from me, it's going to only hurt me in college and my future career. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKay.
I'll sign in. My name's Phil Langer. I'm Owen's dad. We're from Woodcliff Lake, and I just wanted to thank you guys for hearing us. I'll just kind of summarize what I've kind of taken away from today. And in a broad sense, it's you're dealing with a lot of passionate people, musicians, artists, and it's no surprise that they're going to kind of get passionate about this situation. What I saw tonight, what was very interesting to me, and I didn't write anything down, I didn't plan to speak, but was especially hearing the budget presentation from before, was that this school obviously puts a lot of value in a athletic, turning out great athletes, and I think that's great, and there's a lot of value and probably a lot of support in the community for that. What my question would really be to the group is, how do those priorities get set with regard to other potential, in this case, arts activities and budgets expenditures? Because it does seem like, from an outsider's kind of point of view, that we're putting all the eggs in an athletic basket from a financial standpoint, and you know, that's great. I applaud great athletes, but I would also say there's a lot of value also. Myself, as someone who's received a great arts-based education in creative problem solving, all sorts of benefits that come through an artistic education. So what I would actually just question, how do we want to send the message that we are putting all our eggs in the athletic basket, or do we want to be more diversified with our offerings? And if we are interested in creating better arts programs, I would say doing it by asking the students to rally or asking the teachers to come up with some great idea to revolutionize this program is not going to happen. If it doesn't take, if you don't get development, proactive financial support, we're not going to have a program that's going to rival a lot of our neighboring towns' music programs, arts programs. So I would just say, don't look for the students to start it. Don't look for a handful of teachers to start that revolution, but it's got to come from a lot of proactive financial sources, or it's just not going to happen. I love going to the football games, but there's got to be more than that. So that's where I'm leaving it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langer.
Hi, James Geyer, Montvale, New Jersey. Let me sign in. Thank you for letting us go first, so hopefully we'll stop speaking after this point so you can get home before midnight. My son already spoke with the NYU shirt, so you heard most of the, pretty eloquently explained how music is important to him and the passion that you've seen here. Just hearing the presentations tonight, there was a lot of them, but there was a lot of good information. I was quite surprised to see enrollment going down so much over the last 5 years for Pascack Hills and Pascack Valley, and even the expected next year being even reduced further by another 50 students. And, it harkens back to what Antoinette said earlier, too, is it, are kids going to the private schools? Why are they going to private schools? Is it because they're offering more art and other types of curriculum there that we don't have here in the Pascack Valley or Pascack Hills schools? So I know that the math is not there from what I heard earlier, right? Even beyond the 2025 calendar year or school year, having 4 teachers going forward, I have some concerns unless enrollment increases in those curriculum for music, what's going to happen to those 2 and 2 teachers at each of the schools. But I think in order to, before you get to that point, you just need to focus on how can we increase engagement and get more students involved in music. And I heard some of the outreaches. I know the teachers, Elkin and Dora here at Hills, are trying to reach out to the younger students at Fieldstone, trying to get them interested as well. But I think there is some education, and I get it, right? Our kids that are graduating right now in class of 2024, they're the COVID kids. Their freshman year was a disaster. There was nothing there. Sophomore year, they barely figured out where they were going in the school, and then it was junior and senior year by the time they really figured out their place here. And I think it is, increasing awareness as they're coming in that there are classes for them. And, as was mentioned previously, and I've done the same thing now with my son, traveling all over the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, going to all these colleges. I'm an engineer by training. All this music stuff is totally foreign to me, of having to apply to a school and then applying again to a second part of the school so you could get accepted one place but not get accepted in the other area, and then performing and having to create portfolios and interviewing. And we were driving back and forth all over the Northeast to these different schools. It's very hard, it's challenging, but all of them, as you've heard before, all say the same thing. We expect them to have music theory, we expect them to have this, they have to expect them to have that, and all these preferences. Otherwise, these kids are at a disadvantage going to any of these colleges, whether it's a top school or, an entry-level school for any type of music, performance, singing, performing instruments, composing, et cetera. So thank you. As you consider, and I know, Lottie, we talked about that there would be a proposed curriculum, and every 5 years you're looking at redoing certain curriculums. Music is coming up on the plate. And as you consider what you want to do with music, please take that into consideration for those students who want to go on into that field. And then 2, how can you increase engagement with, I understand there's other reasons why enrollment is down, but really, could it be also related a little bit to the arts side as well if we promote it? We do a great job with robotics and languages and all these other areas, but what about music and art and some of those other fields? Because as you heard earlier, it's not always for everybody. Having my older son who did sports, he played football here, he played track and field and did all of that. And then I have my other son who's on the complete opposite side of the spectrum and very on the art side. So there's got to be something for everybody. And my son mentioned there's a lot of friends that are in music, but they don't actively participate in the music classes here. Why is that too? I think you really need to take a look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guyer. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hello, my name is Lily Pleckner. I'm a resident of Woodcliff Lake, and I'm a senior at Hills. I wanted to talk about the importance of the music department here at Hills as a non-music major. I applied to colleges this fall, and my involvement in the music department was a great asset to my application. It was part of the reason I got so many acceptances and even scholarships. In fact, the admissions officer at one selective college told me in my acceptance letter that my involvement in the music department is what's shown in my application. I also know that social emotional well-being is a key value at Hills, and the music department provides that for many. Personally, band has been a way for me to de-stress from academics and has given me a family, and I know that many other students within the music department feel the same way. I know this doesn't necessarily pertain to the possibility of cutting music classes, but if we do cut music tech and music theory, what will come next for the music department and even other arts-related classes? I wanted to emphasize the importance of the music department being given the proper resources, as many other departments are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleckner. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, I think that's everyone. Thank you for the comments from the public. Next, we have policy. We have 5 consent agenda items. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Usami.
Ms. Calderon,
Yes.
Mrs. Huang,
Yes.
Mr. Luisi, Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Stankus,
Yes.
Ms. Steffens,
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese.
Yes. Next, we have 5 consent agenda items on education. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call, any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Usami?
Ms. Calderon,
Yes.
Mrs. Huang,
Yes.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Stankus,
Yes.
Ms. Steffens,
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese.
Yes. Next, we have human resources. We have 26 consent agenda items. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Usami?
Ms. Calderon,
Yes.
Mrs. Huang,
Yes.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Stankus,
Yes.
Ms. Steffens,
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese.
Yes.
So I just want to make a comment. We actually have Dr. Hesney here in the audience, so I just wanted to say congratulations. If you want to just come up here real quick, I'll introduce you very quickly. Absolutely, thank you for coming. Absolutely. So Dr. Hesney was obviously just approved as our Director of Special Education here in the district. If you want to hang out from there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Next, for finance, we have 23 consent agenda items. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Usami?
Ms. Calderon,
Yes.
Mrs. Huang,
Yes.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Stankus,
Yes.
Ms. Steffens,
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese.
Yes. Next, we have old business. Anyone have any? Go ahead.
I do want to thank you for bringing the representative for the cell tower, or cell information, and I think that that's great that we have some options coming our way, so I really do appreciate that.
Next, we have new business. Okay, we are going to skip the second, unless there's anyone here who's speaking on non-agenda items? No, okay. Can I get a motion to enter into executive session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second. You did it?
Okay.
Now, I think it'll be about 5 minutes, and action may be taken afterwards. I'm going to ask Dr. Hesney, do you mind just hanging out until after executive session? And then everybody else, if you guys would, or actually everybody, if you guys would just wait in the hallway until we're done. Like I said, I think this will only be about 5 minutes, and then you can come back in.
To go back into public session, please.
So moved.
Second. I don't need.
Okay, we are back in public session. Okay, and then just adjourn again. Okay, can I get a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.